Sandton and beyond. Get ready for the SANDTON Times Hour
with your host,
Alexander.
Welcome. Oh, my fingers are getting cuts here from playing this guitar every week. It's the SANDTON Times Hour on Mix 93.8 FM and also available as a podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify. My name's Alexander Leitner. This is edition 69, week 22 of the SANDTON Times Hour. And it's the last bit of May 2022. Before we know it, it'll be June 2022. If you want to get in touch, it's email editor@sandtontimes.co.za. It's social media @SANDTON Times. It's the website www.sandtontimes.co.za. And as always, please send us your questions, your comments, your feedback, your input, because you're part of the SANDTON Nation, or part of the SANDTON Times Hour Nation. Let's call it that. It's good to be with you again, and wherever you are listening to from, with and within, including those listening from all over the world in countries like Namibia, Vietnam, Malta, UAE, Finland, Serbia, Zimbabwe, and Saudi Arabia. All is well in SANDTON land, I'm happy to report. And once again, we pick up these stats online. It's amazing what you can do with streaming these days and with podcasts. You can really figure out the smallest towns in the smallest countries in the world. There's somebody listening. I don't know if they come across it by mistake, if they're using it for some sort of research, if there's South Africans living there. It'd be great to know. Drop me a line. Nice to hear from you. Well, winter is upon us, and as we head into June, I reckon it's probably just going to get a little bit colder, and then we have to push through June, July, August, and then hopefully by September things will be getting a little bit warmer again, and we can live another couple of happy months before we do it all over again in 2023. So, how's your week been? I had an interesting observation this week, which I thought I need to sort of mention on the SANDTON Times Hour. It'd be interesting to hear what your thoughts are on it. And it's regarding e-hailing services. And I've had so many conversations with people where, I don't know, people are a little bit more reluctant to use e-hailing services. And I don't know if you're the same. Recently, I had, I volunteered. I wouldn't say I had a forced shift, but I had a shift where I was asked to drive some ladies around for their bachelorette party. You know, friends, family. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I said, I don't want you to use an e-hailing service. I actually don't feel comfortable with you using an e-hailing service. And I'll pick you up. I mean, I'll drop you off wherever you're going, and then, either I'll hang around in that area, go for dinner or whatever, and then pick you up afterwards, because I actually feel more comfortable driving you around, even though driving around Johannesburg of late, I don't know how you feel about this, but like it feels like none of the lights work. I know there's load shedding at the best of times, but it feels like so many lights are not actually even on. They're not even working. And I don't know if it's part of trying to avoid load shedding, or if the light bulbs are just not on, or if the lights don't even work at all. But it feels like Johannesburg's streets are unbelievably dark. I don't know if you've noticed that as well. I'd love to know. #SANDTON Times Hour on social media. Anyway, back to the e-hailing conversation. So, I mean, having to drive at night is pretty spooky at the best of times in Johannesburg. But then allowing women driving around alone at night in a group, maybe a little bit safer than maybe individually. But how do you feel about letting friends, family use e-hailing services? Have you become a little bit more cautious? I know right in the beginning we thought this thing's bulletproof, it's foolproof, it's the perfect system, we've all figured it out, it's cost effective, it's safe, blah, blah, blah. And probably to a great extent it is. I'd be interested to look at the stats. But we've heard of so many interesting stories where things haven't gone the way they were supposed to. And, we don't have to go into the details of it, but I mean, I suppose everyone has their own little story around having used an e-hailing service one way or another. Let's not even talk about cancelling trips when the trip is too short, but we can get into that another time. But are you comfortable letting somebody that you know that's close to you, as say, friends, family, use an e-hailing service? I'd like to hear from you. #SANDTON Times Hour. Well, coming up on this week's episode, he created a character during lockdown that has seen his comedic career skyrocket over the past few months, and now he'll be performing in SANDTON soon. Then the road to Miss South Africa 2022 is underway, and we thought, let's get to know some of the top 30 vying for the new crown. And if you enjoy a good road trip, I'm going to be sharing more of my travel notes with you from one of the road trips I did earlier this year. And then SANDTON has a new address which features everything and a little bit more. Stay tuned to hear all about it. And finally, if you're into antiques and all things collectible, well, one of SANTON's oldest fairs turns 40 this year. All this and more in the next hour. There's no headlines to go this week as we have quite a bit of ground to cover, so let's get straight into it. Next up, we kick things off with comedian Prev Reddy.
From Greater Sandton to the rest of the world, this is the SANTON Times Hour.
All right, as we ease into our hour for this week, I'm thrilled to be joined by Prev Reddy. He is a comedian. He's got a show coming up in Sandton. I thought, well, let's get him on the line and have a chat to him. Prev, good to have you on the SANTON Times Hour. You're best known for a character that you created, I think it's about 3 years ago, called Aunty Shamilla.
Yes. Correct. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Firstly, it's really cool to be here. And yeah, I created this character accidentally 3 years ago, and it sort of took over my life. You know, they always say you can't make a viral video that's not up to you. And I think the moment I stopped trying to make a viral video, the one video I'd never expected went viral. And yeah, and that's pretty much how it happened. It sort of snowballed after that.
Well, your show that's coming up is called A Qualified Disappointment, and I suppose plays into a bit of a stereotype with Indian families where parents want their children to become accountants, doctors, lawyers, and I guess your parents didn't get any of that.
No, they got the option that was not in the only jobs for Indian kids rule book. The idea for it really, I mean, it's the first show that I'm doing without my character, without Aunty Shamilla. So it's quite a big step for me, and I'm very excited about it. But I think the idea about it was just to write about my journey, because I think I get a lot of questions from a lot of younger Indian kids who want to know just how did this all happen? We all, sort of go through the same experiences. And I thought it was cool to just share this. And I mean, a lot of it is just funny accidents.
Well, I mean, take us through your career. I mean, tell us about where you grew up, how you got to where you are now as a performer and as an actor and as a comedian.
So, I mean, I've always been into the whole entertainment industry. I think every aspect of it always appealed to me from a very young age. Anyone in my family would tell you when I was younger, performing was what I would do at like family gatherings, just at home, randomly start singing. I knew every Michael Jackson, every Spice Girls song that you could imagine, and the routines, and I would just do it constantly. I mean, when I was like 5 or 6, Jam Alley was like my favorite TV show, So I think I was always enticed by the energy surrounding the entertainment industry. So I always knew it's something I wanted to do. So, in high school, I got to do a lot of musical theater, and I started performing with professionals from the age of 15. And then moving on after high school, my parents obviously were like, well, you can't really study drama. That's not a real degree. And so thank God for AFTA, which just opened in Durban. And, producing was a course. So I knew if I could angle it in such a way, my parents would just be like, fine with it. So I told them, listen, producing essentially is business. Indian people love business. So I was like, it's business. So if you let me study business just in the non-conventional form of it. I'm not opening a shop, but I mean, I'm going to make a product and market it and sell it. And that sort of sold them on me studying that. So I studied that, but I wasn't really fulfilled because I knew I wanted to be on the stage. And I think it was towards the end of college where my friends were sort of egging me on to do comedy, because they were like, oh, you're funny, you should do stand-up. But you don't really take it seriously because you're funny to your friends. Your friends are always like, you should be a comedian. And I think it was when I moved to Johannesburg where I decided to do an open mic, and it worked. And so I just continued to do open mics. And and then I was a comic before Aunty Shamilla, which a lot of people don't know. And then I came back home from Johannesburg and I created that one video. It went viral, and then we're here today. So it's been, a lot of people think it's overnight, but I mean, I've been doing this since I was 15. I don't know anything else apart from the entertainment industry.
Well, it's interesting you touch on that. I think it's one of the Goliath brothers that always spoke about, there's being funny at the braai, and then there's being funny on stage, which are two very, very different kinds of funny. And if you can
100%.
And if you can pull it off on stage, it's a whole different conversation. And confession time, I've also done 2 or 3 open mics at various venues, and it's it's hair-raising. I mean, it really is a ballsy exercise, even if I say so myself, because, like, people might not laugh, and you're there for a good 7 minutes having to...
And it's happened. It happened. It's terrifying. I know I was headlining a gig in Belito, and I mean, I'm only 26, right? So I started doing comedy when I was like 21, 20. At that point, I was headlining in Belito in Durban, and that was my first sort of headlining gig. So I was very arrogant about it. I'm like, headlining at this age, whatever, go onto stage for 15 minutes and absolutely bomb. Nobody laughed, not once. And I was like, this is really difficult. If your head's not on correctly, and if you don't think it's hard work, this is really difficult. So it is terrifying. I mean, making people laugh is one of the hardest things ever.
Well, listen, you got through that gig, and I think all traces or any evidence of that particular event were, I think, destroyed subsequently. There's
completely
no evidence of that ever having happened. Now, let's get back to Qualified Disappointment taking place in Sandton.
Yep.
You touched on it. It's your debut solo live stand-up comedy performance. There's no Aunty Shamilla, but you've just come back from a tour to the UK. Tell us a little bit more about that.
We went to the UK last month actually, to do our first international show with Aunty Shamilla. So the second largest audience that I have on the internet outside of South Africa is the United Kingdom, which was unreal. And we sold out that show. We had a full house. I mean, there's no half capacities and stuff in the UK anymore. So we had a full house. And I think it was a long time coming, that show, because there's a lot of expats around the world. And I'm a stage. I love to be on stage. And the content thing was just, a side thing during lockdown. And so it was a huge step to go overseas. And I think everything turned out really well. So when we came back, I sort of understood that, okay, Aunty Shamilla's career is well on the way, but I'm giving so much of myself to the character that there's a lot of things that I want to say and I want to, crack jokes at that I couldn't possibly say with her audience, because it is, family audience of all ages. So I think that's why I decided it was time to finally step out and do something for myself for a little bit. It sounds weird, like I'm talking about two different people, but it really, it gets, I mean, people really can't differentiate me from Aunty Shamilla. It's like, yeah.
Prev, we'll indulge you for the confusion. It's tough when they both live in your head. You mentioned you had obviously an expat audience in London, and I have no doubt that there's still a trillion South Africans running around the streets of London who just want a dose of home when international or South African performers come. Did you have any? Because England's got a very strong Indian community, not Durban Indian, but
Correct.
Indian. Did you find any of those appearing at your show slightly confused, maybe not quite understanding that this is different to what they know?
That was the terrifying thing for me, right? So one of the first gigs that I did before we actually did my show in London was an event for South African tourism in the UK, which is literally just down the road from Buckingham Palace. It was unreal. I was like, I'm literally like 5 minutes away from the Queen, and I'm wearing a dressing gown from Jet, like, to tell jokes. It was unreal. But at that gig, a lot of the people who were at the tourism event weren't actually South Africans. There were a lot of British people from in and around England. And I was terrified, because I think I knew in that moment, like, I had for the past 2 years, I had the comfort of knowing that everyone who sees or knows Shamilla is South African, and they get what I'm about to say. And I think when you're about to perform to an audience who has absolutely no idea who you are, it starts to dawn on you like, was it a good move coming here now to do this? After the 15 minutes, I had so many people who weren't South African that came and said to me that the jokes that I did get were hilarious, and the character itself and her opinions, because I'm very good at improv, so I love to interact with the audience a lot as Aunty Shamilla. It's very tongue-in-cheek humor. I think that's something that the British people, like. They like that sort of dark insult comedy type vibe. And so a lot of them ended up buying tickets, and that's what ended up selling out the show, is that we had a lot of Brits come to the show, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. So it was an initial fear of mine first, but I think the thing that makes it so relatable, particularly to, I think, an Indian audience, regardless of the country you come from, is that our parents are the same, regardless of where they're born. They are all overprotective, overbearing, And I think it's something we all bond with. I mean, I met two kids who had never been to South Africa. Their dad is from South Africa, but they've never been. And they were like, my mom says the same thing. My dad says the same thing. And I'm like, yep. It's so I think we go through the same things just through different tongues.
Well, if you want to catch more of Prev Reddy, he'll be at the Hotel Sky in Sandton. He's performing on the 2nd of June, and you can get tickets on Quicket. They're 150 Rand.
Yeah. Well, yes. So the show at Hotel Sky is sold out. We sold out in 30 minutes. That show is sold out. And we are currently working on a second show in Johannesburg, probably at a very big venue, at a very popular casino. I'm not going to mention names. We did this qualified disappointment, was supposed to be one show, and now it's ended up with 7 shows, and we've sold out all of them. So we are adding one more show for Johannesburg. So to everyone who hasn't gotten tickets in Johannesburg, I will be announcing on my platform this week the second date and when tickets go live.
Well, it's certainly a show that stands to its name, Qualified Disappointment. So if you didn't get tickets to this Hotel Sky Sandton event, it's definitely a qualified disappointment. But do not fear. As Prev says, there's more tickets coming and another show coming. So, Prev, we're going to keep an eye out for it. And I'd like to thank you for making the time to be on the SANTON Times Hour.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It was so dope.
Connect with the SANTON Times. Email editor@santontimes.co.za. From Greater Sandton to the rest of the world, this is the SANTON Times Hour.
All right, the Miss SA Top 30 have been revealed, and this is the time where we kind of get to know some of the Miss South Africas, and we're going to definitely do our bit to try and get to know some of the top 30, because I think at some point you're going to have to vote for them, and then it becomes the top 10, and then before we know it, it's that time of the year again where there's a pageant, and we get to find out who Miss South Africa is, and so it goes, and there's Miss Universe and Miss World. So we're back into that rhythm of things again, and I've got 2 young ladies joining me on this particular slot to get to know them a little bit more on the SANTON Times Hour, and in no particular order, I've got Anarzade Omar. She's 23 from Crown Gardens in Johannesburg. She's got a BA in Strategic Communications in Marketing from the University of Johannesburg, and also works as a social media manager at a digital marketing agency. She runs a small online sushi business, which she launched during COVID-19 lockdown, and admits to being an extrovert with the worst dad jokes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
All right, there you go. And then I've got Stacy Gossayn. She's 25. She's from Viljoenskroon in the Free State, but currently is based in Pretoria and has a BSc degree in Human Movement Sciences and Psychology, and works as a surgical orthopedic medical representative. Her love for beauty products and cosmetics led her to study for a diploma in professional makeup artistry, and she successfully runs a side business as a makeup artist. She's currently completing a diploma in sports nutrition. So, Stacy, good for you to join us.
Thank you so much, Alex, for having me on your show, and hello, everybody.
Awesome, man. Well, Stacy, let's kick off with you whilst you're already on the mic. Stacy, what's it feel like being in the top 30 of Miss South Africa?
It is absolutely overwhelming. You know, I was just talking to Anarzade, and I was telling her, I won't even lie, I burst into tears. I was absolutely finished. I'm so overwhelmed, and I'm so honored and grateful. And the support that I've received since being called out to be one of the top 30 has been absolutely insane and so overwhelming. And honestly, I'm just trying to get back to all the replies and all the posts. It's just been the most incredible journey. And I'm actually so humbled to be sitting here on this interview talking to you about it.
Well, it's good to have you on. And Anarzade, similar feelings? Were you also responding to a whole bunch of messages in your DMs?
Absolutely. Social media just blew up. It's insane to know the amount of people who are ready to support you. I mean, votes have already opened and people have already sent me screenshots that they're voting. It's really a very warm, fuzzy feeling to know that there's so many people willing to take on the stream with you, you know?
Well, so far, so good. I'm glad to hear that it's all still very happy and all going very strong, which is great. And long may it last. Anarzade, why did you decide to enter Miss South Africa? Is there anything in the past Miss South Africas that kind of triggered something where you said, well, I'm going to enter. The moment I can do it, I'm going to do it?
No, absolutely. I think it's fair to say that it's always been a childhood dream. But apart from that, I remember the day Tamron Green won. It was the year that she won, when I decided that I'm going to take this journey seriously. I see myself reflected in her so much, and she really was a true representation of what I want to be on this platform. So I remember it was in that exact moment when I thought to myself, you know what, it's time, and I started working towards it, and here we are.
Well, Stacy, do you have your own Tamron Green moment that any of the former Miss South Africa's got you going and deciding that you want to do this?
I must admit, there was a few that inspired me or actually inspired my journey. One I can name specifically was Orlean Strauss when she won Miss World. Oh, actually Miss South Africa, and then went on to win Miss World. I remember sitting on my couch, and I was still in high school then. I was actually grade 11 to be exact. And I sat on my couch holding my laptop, waiting to hear her being crowned. And as soon as she was crowned, I burst into tears. And I kind of felt like I had won it with her. It was the weirdest moment. And my mom walked in at that time, and she was like, "Stacy, what are you doing?" And I loved myself so much in that moment. But truly, then looking at my own life and my own story, I truly realized what this platform means and why I bring value to it. And that's ultimately what inspired me to enter specifically in 2022.
But Stacy, so many people are quite sort of, reluctant to kind of support beauty pageants. A lot of people would say, well, beauty pageants, it's so 1950s. And yet here we are in 2022, two young ladies who've entered Miss South Africa again. What did you see what do you see in Miss South Africa that makes you want to pursue this and still feel that this is absolutely topical, even in 2022?
I absolutely love that question, Alex. I think that is such a relevant question to be asking. And the reason why I think so is because you actually hit the nail on the head right there. A lot of people think that pageants aren't relevant nowadays. And in actual fact, they are so, so relevant. And the reason why they're relevant for me personally is because a pageant isn't just where a woman gets to stand on a stage and be crowned and, represent her country. A pageant is a place where you can stand on that stage and share your story and allow other people to journey on that story with you. I mean, relating back to my previous question, when I saw Orlean and I had loved myself so much in her story, I realized the importance of my story and how many young girls are going to look up to me and be like, wow, that was something I went through. This woman is such an example and a role model to me. And the fact that she overcame all odds and put herself out there to be on this platform is what is ultimately the most important, because you need to inspire a nation being on this platform, and you need to understand the responsibility that this title carries. It's about inspiration, it's about lifting others up, it's about encouragement, and most of all, it's about education and equipping young girls of this nation specifically. And I think that pageantry allows women to be multifaceted in all areas. There's so many facets to a pageant that we look at, and if we look at the winners or worthy winners of the past, how multifaceted these women have been, smart, knowledgeable, inspirational. They've truly brought something to the table. They've truly inspired a nation, and not just of women, but South Africa in general.
Anarzade, here Stacy's definitely got all her ducks in a row in terms of why she's entered and what she sees in it. What are you hoping to achieve with Miss South Africa, with your Miss South Africa entry?
Absolutely. Stacy really covered most part of it. But I think personally, I know the power that this organization holds and the difference that it can bring, not just in my life, but to the rest of South Africa. So I know that through this platform, I'll be able to amplify my voice and really share my message to every single person out there. And I'd really like to focus more specifically in the digital literacy and digital divide in our youth. Because personally, I've experienced what it's like to have access to these things, use it. And you did mention in the beginning, I started a small online sushi business. So I've experienced what it's like to be unemployed, and I used the tools that I had with my digital literacy to start a business and make something out of it. So I'd really like to focus on our youth, and I know that through the Miss Organization platform, I'll be able to amplify my voice loud to everyone out there.
Well, it's still a little while till the top 10. I see they will be announced on June 13th. So later on in a couple of weeks' time. And in the interim, people can vote. And I'm just going to quickly pull up the details here in terms of what people need to do. So you need to download the Miss South Africa app. And then your first vote is free. And it's exclusive to the Miss South Africa app. So they have to go on there. They have to vote for you. Then hopefully out of the top 30, we get a top 10. And you can, I suppose, then vote as much as you want once you're on the app. And the details will be on there. I'm not going to go through all of them. But it's been great having you on. Stacy Gossayn from the Free State, now in Pretoria. And then I've also got Anarzade Omar, who's in Johannesburg. It's been great to get to know you, and I wish you all the best on your Miss South Africa journey. This is the SANTON Times Hour on Mix 93.8 FM and also on Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And we'll be back right after this.
For more, the SANTON Times Hour continues.
The SANTON Times Hour on Mix 93.8 FM. And Where Are You Now? Lost Frequency and Callum Scott. And he's coming to South Africa later this year. I think it's later this year, or is it early next year? We're going to get all the details. I know I've asked for an interview with him, so let's hope, fingers crossed, and burn a candle or something. And hopefully we'll get him onto the SANTON Times Hour. Well, that's taking us into the second half of this hour. And as always, if there's anything that caught your attention during the show, but you didn't manage to grab the details, be sure to visit the show notes on the SANTON Times website, santontimes.co.za, for a detailed breakdown of the where, what, when, why, how, with who, and you can get all the information there. Well, most of it, at least. Also, be sure to check out the social media accounts at SANTON Times and feel free to get in touch. You can send a tweet, a voice note, a DM, whatever works for you. It's really up to you. And also don't forget to use the hashtag SANTON Times Hour. Last week we spoke about going on road trips, and I started my conversation on the Eastern Cape, a trip I'd done a couple of months ago down to the Eastern Cape. It was actually sort of beginning of this year. And we got as far as talking about Stainsburg and this incredible little bakery pot style that you can find called Karoo Place. They do sort of milk tarts and some fantastic Karoo lamb pies. So if you like stopping off somewhere and having something that just captures the flavors of the moment and of the area, well, Karoo Place, definitely a place to check out. But I was on my way to Shamwari Private Game Reserve at the time. And if you haven't been to Shamwari yet, let me tell you, you need to put it on your bucket list. It might be somewhat pricey. It might not be your usual sort of lodge visit. But let me tell you, this is the closest I think we could possibly get in South Africa to sort of this like ultra luxury, like the kind of stuff you see in the Maldives and the Seychelles and any sort of exotic island. I mean, Shamwari Private Game Reserve in the Eastern Cape, you'd never expect to see what you end up seeing. I mean, they've spent quite a bit of money. I'm not going to sort of try and pin it down too much, but I think it's about 250 million rand, give or take, on refurbishing Shamwari during the lockdown period, so over the last 2 years. They've got about 6 or 7 lodges on the property, so it's a vast property, beautiful property. And I think the crown jewel, well, we can debate this, I mean, we can arm wrestle about this, but I think the crown jewel, from what I've seen so far, is Longley Manor, which is the main building. And if you were in Shamwari, or if you've been to Shamwari many years ago, it's not what it used to be like. I remember people showing me pictures of the sort of salmon pink building, very 1960s, 1970s, with sort of white garden furniture, a very humble swimming pool, and that's about it. Let me tell you, it's a totally different place. It is sort of almost like Franschhoek vibes, a mansion on an estate, on a wine farm. It is just unbelievable. It's greys and whites, the sort of Edwardian style rooms. I mean, they've built the most fantastic infinity pool that looks onto a watering hole where the animals come and go on a regular basis. So if you feel like doing absolutely nothing, you can lie by the pool. The pool is, I think the pool's heated. Well, it's got a great temperature. If it isn't heated, it's got a great temperature. And you can literally lie in the pool, lie by the pool, watch the animals come to the watering hole, have all their action unfold in front of you. Or you can decide that you're going to go on one of the great game drives, and they've got some fantastic viewing spots. And let me tell you, Shamwari is the kind of place that you find A-list celebrities, Hollywood celebrities, and royalty coming to visit. This is not some sort of hyperbole. It really is. Truly, they've had some remarkable guests, and hopefully they continue to have these remarkable guests, but it's quite evident why they have those remarkable guests. And you'll see things that you probably wouldn't see in the Kruger when it comes to the game drives. You'll see Cape Mountain zebra. You'll see the Cape leopard, which is not very easy to spot. Excuse the pun, but they're not as easy to find as one would hope. But it's a slightly different climate, a slightly different lay of the land. As I say, a couple of different animals that you wouldn't necessarily see if you went up north. Really quite something. I mean, when I was there, we did a fantastic breakfast in the bush. If you've never done one of those, it feels a bit like a Survivor Rewards challenge. So they go all out. I mean, you're literally driving in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly there's a tablecloth, a white tablecloth, with an entire buffet of everything you could ask for at breakfast, be it warm, be it cold. There's a chef. They've got the grill going, so they can make you warm eggs or bacon or sausages or whatever it is that you like warm. Then there's muesli, there's granolas, there's yogurts, there's fruit. It really is quite something. I mean, it almost feels like more than you could ever ask for in terms of being in the middle of nowhere. They also do fantastic sundowners. I know we also had a great sort of gin and tonic on the hill overlooking the great plains of Shamwari with a gin and tonic in hand and a selection of biltongs and dried fruits and nuts. Just unbelievable. And I think sometimes, when international visitors come, they must be completely blown away. I mean, they must sit here and go, you guys have just got the best country in the world ever. And I think we do. We really do. I think we just don't often see it enough. We don't often promote it enough. And I think we've got so much more to offer than we often promote. And then in terms of catering, I mean, talking about food and drink, I mean, Shamwari is just on a different level altogether. I mean, in terms of the way things are presented. And lunch is generally sort of, it's almost like a little buffet on your table. So they do sort of like salads and they do a couple of nibbles. So it's almost like tapas style. But even down to the crockery and cutlery, have they not paid attention to all of that as well? So sometimes you go into a place and you think, wow, what an amazing kitchen. They've done the most amazing food, presented beautifully. And then it's on some sort of flimsy plate, or it's on something that looks like it's been washed sort of 50 times too often. Or the fork sort of bends, sort of Uri Geller style, as you try and stick your fork into the steak. Here they've just gone all out. Here they've honored. I think the last time I checked, they had Villeroy and Bosch plates, and I was wondering who washes these plates because you can't afford to break any of these. But really, they've gone all out with the crockery and cutlery. The presentation's beautiful. If you're into green smoothies, if you're into almond milk with your coffee, they'll cater for whatever your needs are. And then some. So breakfast, lunch, supper, you've got all of that happening there as well. Then the rooms themselves, just spacious with your own DeLonghi kettle and your own Nespresso coffee machine. And they even have Healing Earth amenities. And if you haven't tried Healing Earth, body wash, shampoo, conditioner, soaps, whatever, I mean, it's just going to change your life. Also produced in South Africa, a fantastic, fantastic product. I always get excited when I see that kind of attention to detail when it comes to luxury, because so often luxury, much like many other terms, is thrown about very casually. And I think here they've just absolutely nailed it. And now, during my last visit, I managed to once again stay at Longley Manor briefly, but then the real reason I was there was to check out Sandile Safari Lodge, and this is their latest opening. I think it opened sometime last year, and these are luxury tented camps that take things just to a whole new level, and it's a different experience altogether. So Longley Manor, very much sort of that manor hotel vibe. Sandile Safari Lodge, totally different vibe. You live in luxury tents, but let me tell you that the tents are sort of almost sort of as an indication. I mean, you're not roughing it out with a ground sheet and hoping that the wind won't blow away your sails. No, it's nothing like that. I mean, you arrive at Sandile. Firstly, it's on the most incredible little hill that looks out onto the plains. Once again, there's a watering hole and a very vast open space that you could look out onto. And I mean, you could pretty much spend your day just sitting on the terrace, drinking a cappuccino, having a cocktail or a glass of wine, and just watching nature unfold in front of you. The rooms themselves are something different altogether. I mean, when you get to your room, you've got your own little private entrance, which opens up onto a small little plunge pool with some stretchers so you can suntan or just relax next to your plunge pool. If you get a little bit hot, you can just dip in there. Then you move into your actual room space, which has got a canvas tent covering But the rest is all you've got sliding doors, you've got glass. I mean, you can open up all of that and make it feel like you're in a tent. Or if you don't feel like having that, you just close it all up and it's like you're in a 5-6 star hotel room with your fan. You've got a fireplace if it's in winter, so you don't stress about it being too cold. You can heat it up. They've got an air condition. And then all the amenities you could ask for. I mean, there's a mini bar with a fantastic coffee station. Once again, I think they even had Rosenthal crockery and cutlery for the coffee. I mean, it just makes the coffee taste 10 times better. There's Wi-Fi. There's a beautiful bath and indoor shower and toilet and basins just fantastically put together. I think there's even a little chandelier that hangs in the bathroom. And then if you're really into a bit of nature and really into a bit of outdoors, well, there's even an outdoor shower. Very private outdoor shower, but you can go get naked and have a shower outdoors while you're watching the giraffes and the elephants and everything run around outside of the perimeter of the lodge or on the plains, and it's just fantastic. I mean, I wouldn't do it in winter. I mean, winter might be a little bit of a stretch, but in summer, I mean, that is just the most fantastical feature to have, that outdoor shower. And once again, if that doesn't suit you, you can shower indoors or have a bath, or any of those great things, or just have a dip in the pool, quite honestly. And they have a fantastic bar as well, some great food. I mean, the food at Shamwari is also just absolutely world-class. And sometimes you think, gee, how do they get this into the middle of nowhere? I mean, you think, you're sort of an hour or two away from any sort of supermarket, never mind, anything that could really, be classified along some of the dishes that are being served at Shamwari. And the kitchen and the team there have just done the most incredible job in really bringing, fine dining, some fantastic meals right to your plate in Shamwari. And while we were down in Shamwari, I thought, well, let's go take a drive to the Addo Elephant Park. It's one of our national parks. I have never been there. Did a little of a drive around there. What a great spot that is. Some fantastic viewing. I mean, elephants galore. In some instances, I was a little bit stressed because, elephants, you don't know how they're going to feel or which way they're going to feel that day. So you kind of keep your cautious distance. But elephants upon elephants upon elephants. It is absolutely incredible. And I even see on the Addo Elephant Park guide on the map that they give you, they even point out that it's one of the few, if not the only park where you can also see some sea life. So they also highlight sharks, they highlight whales, so you probably have to go very, very far south to pick up on sort of sweetwater and saltwater aquatic life. But for the most of it, if you're into the Big Five and just wildlife there, once again, just an absolute feast. And we're staying up the Zurberg mountain pass. And I don't know if you've ever stayed at the Zurberg mountain pass, but right at the top of this mountain pass, which is a drive and a half at the best of times, which is not far from the Addo Elephant Park. So if you're looking to stay at the national park, you might want to check out this hotel on top of the Zurberg mountain pass. But just such a fascinating corner of our history. So I was chatting to some of the locals, also the owner of this hotel we were staying at, and he was telling me how this hotel initially was like a halfway stop for people who were arriving in then Port Elizabeth or East London sort of harbours. And at the time when we had the diamond rush in Kimberley and the gold rush in Johannesburg, and everyone was coming from everywhere in the world to find fortune and fame and wealth, they would come through that corner of South Africa because Cape Town was too far. So if you arrived in Cape Town, it was a hell of a trek from Cape Town to Johannesburg or to Kimberley. And if you came in via Durban, well, you had to cross over hills. And remember, we didn't have any low-cost airlines. We didn't have any trains. We didn't have any buses going on a regular basis. So you literally had to take sort of an ox wagon or a horse and cart all the way up to either Johannesburg or Kimberley, depending on what you were looking for. So this Eastern Cape strip became the hottest place to arrive from England, from Ireland, from Scotland, from anywhere in the world, and get off the ship, get yourself a horse or a cart or an ox wagon or whatever, and then start making your way up through the Eastern Cape, through the Free State, and then kind of take a split if you were going to go to Johannesburg or if you want to go to Kimberley. And this Zurberg Mountain Pass became a really important channel for people to go through the mountains and then move on to the Free State. So this hotel that I was staying at, they were sort of a stopping point where people could have a sleep, a drink, a merriment. They could swap out their horses. So supposedly they had sort of 200 horses there at one point that people would eventually get up the mountain pass, which must have been an absolute nightmare with a horse and a cart. Swap out your horse and then carry on to places like Graaff-Reinet, and then some of the other sort of well-known towns in the Eastern Cape, then probably as far as Bloemfontein possibly, and then sort of splitting off from there. So fascinating history in that part of town, that part of South Africa, and you would never know about it. You would never know about it if you didn't go have a look. And then, whilst in the Eastern Cape, there's 2 other places to check out, but I'm going to touch on those on another episode. But there's a little bit of, hopefully a little bit of inspiration for your next road trip. If you're looking to do a bit of a visit in and around South Africa, fuel prices and all, well, this could be something that you might want to look at. The Eastern Cape, so unexplored, so underpromoted, and really something worth looking forward to.
You're listening to the SANTON Times Hour. Connect with the SANTON Times. Email editor@santontimes.co.za.
If you've been in and out of the heart of Sandton over the last couple of months, you might have noticed a building coming up slowly but surely. The building I'm referring to is the one that's sort of between Benmore Shopping Centre, and then if you head towards Crawford, it's sort of in the middle there, and it's gone all the way up to the sky, and it's complete. You would have seen a big @ sign pop up at one point, and then the word Sandton. Well, we're going to talk about that particular building, if you know exactly what building I'm talking about right now. And I'm thrilled to be joined on the line by Chief Investment Officer of Axiopolis, Astrino Nicoloudakis. Astrino, I feel like I should be getting 10 points by getting through that sentence.
100.
Thanks, man. Tell me a little bit more about this new project that's appeared on the Sandton skyline.
We started this project quite a while ago. It's a mixed-use building in the heart of Sandton. It brings all the amenities that one would like to live a city within a city, let's call it, where you would be able to find whatever you want in one building. With all these massive estates going up in South Africa, we thought rather than just taking up the land, we'd put one in the heart of Sandton and offer it to the people of Sandton for a good accommodation and to bring in international tourists and semi-graded tenants that have moved down to the coast and would like to come back up to the City of Gold to be doing some work every single day.
Well, let's break up this building into its pieces, because from the outside it looks like one big building. A lot of people think the whole thing is a hotel or the whole thing is an apartment block, but it's actually made up of a series of different businesses, elements. So just take us through all those different parts that make up this one big building.
Being involved in the project for the last 7 years, you kind of take it for granted that everybody understands the philosophy of the building. The building's actually split up into quite a few different segments, and the main majority of it being accommodation, which is split up into rentable. We're not selling these units. They're rentable units. There's 480 apartments, which start off between 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedrooms. And then we have the major hotel component, which is 561 units. Those are the 2 biggest components of the gross lettable area. And then everything else is auxiliary businesses that support it. So within it, we have a restaurant, a clubhouse, a cigar bar, a vin storage. We've got a creche, a deli, and a beauty spa, all part and parcel of the business that runs the Axiopolis project. These are all housed underneath the @Sandton brand, and each one of them have got their designations as the @Sandton Hotel, the @Sandton Apartments, and the @Sandton Lifestyle. And the Lifestyle really is the component which also includes a 6,000 square meter retail shopping center, which is where the deli is situated. We do have ample parking as well. There's 6 basements of parking, 2 levels dedicated to the on-grade retail, where the rest of the basements are used for the conferencing and accommodation in the hotel and apartments. Another business we do have also is storage units, where individuals who do have apartments and have, let's call it, scaled down from their large houses and come into an apartment could store some of their valuables in the storage facility. We also have been cutting edge with regards to the technology we're adding onto it. We've got free Wi-Fi, we've got high-speed Wi-Fi, and we've got electrical car charging stations. In the retail properties, we have a fast charger, which you could probably charge a car in 45 minutes. And then in the apartments, we have your normal electrical car charging station. Will take you the evening to charge your electrical car. So those are all the different businesses within this huge building. It's not just a hotel. It's not just an apartment. it really goes to the philosophy of a mixed-use building.
I mean, Astrino, it sounds like a lot to digest. I mean, just to recap, so you've got Axopolis, it's got a hotel, it's got an apartment, it's got a spa, it's got, what's it called, shared office space, it's got, I think it's also got medical suites, it's got a restaurant, it's got a deli, it's got a shopping center. I think you guys are also working on putting a creche in as well. I mean, it's got storage units. I mean, you've got pretty much everything and anything in that half a square kilometer, which is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think you summed it up well. I think whatever you could think of to try and live your life from year zero to the end, we've got it here. That's what we want to achieve. The philosophy of the building is to try and create a secure environment where individuals can feel comfortable to be able to use the amenities at their discretion. The only such building that exists actually now in the world is in Dubai. They've got very similar buildings where the Dubai and Emiratis are trying to actually escape the weather system. We in South Africa trying to secure our belongings and be a little bit more safe. So that's kind of the philosophy of the building and trying to create a city within a city for everybody to live in.
So let's go into some of the more sort of business side of it. And I think I've got two sort of, I think, quite pressing questions to you on this particular project. Why put it up in Sandton? And why put it up at a time where a lot of people are looking at developments and at property or, sort of a post-COVID world and going, I don't know if I'm ready to start investing or start spending a lot of money?
All right, so the holding company and listed company is Acsion Limited, which has been on the JSE for the last 8 years. Our main focus has always been retail. However, as we can see with COVID and what happened, the retail market has got its weaknesses. And we were looking to rebalance our portfolio and diversify. And the most natural diversification in property at the moment is to go into a mixed-use building. Why? Because you start learning all the facets of property and start applying that to your existing portfolio in the retail. So it was a synergistic diversification we created to make sure that we were future-proofing our portfolio from a property perspective. We are property developers, so we also found a great piece of land in Sandton, and I think we've done it justice with the 21-story building that we built at the moment. This is not a model that we're going to single market just for Sandton. We will also try and become more national in South Africa and going down to Cape Town and Durban and trying to move out internationally and globally, which is also the third leg of our diversification in our Acsion Limited portfolio. Why in Sandton is quite an important metric. When we first started building and designing this, there was an oversupply of offices and an undersupply of residential in Sandton, the pre-COVID world. So with that said, we said, well, the traffic was becoming a nightmare. How do we get individuals on the doorstep of Sandton, not having to use vehicular transport and trying to get into the city center via foot or a bus or any way? Why not put it up in a high-rise building and densify a portion of it for residential? So that was the pre-COVID world. Now let's talk about the post-COVID world. It doesn't mean that individuals who stay in apartments aren't going to still go to Sandton to do most of their business transactions, meetings with their lawyers, their bankers. It is still the CBD of Johannesburg and also the center of our GDP. So you've got to understand there's a lot of industry going on in Sandton. The office vacancy, yes, has been obliterated a little bit by COVID, but that's going to come back. Nothing is forever. And our investment timeline is a lot longer. So we have a much longer view of what Sandton is going to look like in 2050. And Sandton's going to look phenomenal. It's going to have everything you ever wanted. It's going to really become the Manhattan of Africa, if I can be as zealous as that to say. So why not give it a building that would stand up to a Manhattan style?
Well, Astrino, I think we certainly share a vision in terms of Sandton as the Manhattan of Africa, and I think that's also why the SANDTON Times is where it is and is what it is. So Astrino Nicoloudakis, he's the Chief Investment Officer of this new development, this new building that you've seen coming up in Sandton, joining the impressive skyline that is Sandton Central. Axopolis, check it out at Sandton Hotel, which you'll probably be visiting sooner rather than later, including the spa, the deli, and all those other things. But then also have a look at some of those apartments. I mean, Astrino kindly took me on a tour, And it's quite a fascinating walkabout, let me tell you. I mean, there's so much to see, so much to do, and you probably might get through it in a day. But as I say, you're going to have to put some time aside. There's a gym, there's a conferencing area. I mean, it just never ends. There's just so much stuff. So, Astrino, thank you so much for making the time, and it's been great to chat to you on the SANTON Times Hour.
Follow the SANTON Times on social media.
@SANTON Times.
All right, as we wrap up another show, we've got one more interview to get through, and I'm really excited about this one because I'm a little bit of a collector. I enjoy a good auction, I enjoy a good antique shop, and I thank my mother for that because she has always been an avid collector and someone who's loved antiques and who has instilled that in me. So whenever I go through a small town or whenever I find myself overseas, I'm always drawn to those shops that a lot of people might say are a bit dusty or might be a bit old-fashioned. Well, I see myself in there looking at the Royal Doulton and some of the amazing furniture and things of yesteryear. And we're quite lucky, I think, in Sandton because we've had an antique fair that takes place every first Sunday of the month, and it is the Nelson Mandela Square Antique Fair, which celebrates 40 years this year. In 2022, 40 years of the Nelson Mandela Square Antique Fair. And to tell us a little bit more about it is the organizer, Clyde Terry, who's also the owner of a store called Clyde on 4th Antiques. And Clyde, it's good to have you on the SANTON Times Hour. Do tell a little bit more about this antique fair. 40 years, it's unbelievable.
Yes, we're very, very excited. And firstly, thank you very much for having me here. It was quite an extraordinary meeting I had with Vanessa Pryor a while ago, who now lives in Amarnis. And I just sort of like randomly said to her, when did you and Michael start the antique fair? And we managed to calculate that this year's its 40th year. So I said to her, well, really, we have to celebrate that because her and her husband originally started the Sandton Antique Fair at the Sandton Sun Hotel. So yes, it's been 40 years in the heart of Sandton, which is quite incredible.
Well, I mean, I suppose 40 years doesn't make it antique. It might make it, what is it, vintage? but I mean, an impressive run. I mean, 4 decades of, setting up in Sandton. And maybe let's delve into the history of the fair itself. I know we chatted briefly before this interview to say that this started all in the Sandton Sun, which a lot of people might still remember.
Yes, in the Sandton Sun Hotel, it was a different era then, as we were discussing with Vanessa and I then. Antiques were generally, it was a sort of stalewart type of antique fair. Everything was very different to now. And slowly over a period of time, I realized the need to bring in the collectible angle to the antique fair, which is introducing younger collectors like you into the marketplace. So originally in Sandton, it was a very, very authentic antique fair. And then over a period of time, I went to New York, funny enough, and I think it was 10 or 12 years ago. And I visited an antique fair and I realized the need to bring in the collectible angle to the antique fair here to introduce the younger people. Collectibles being the items that people do collect that are hugely sought after in the world that might necessarily not be 100 years or older.
What's popular or what's in at the moment or in vogue at the moment when it comes to antiques? What's sort of top of the pops at the moment?
Well, antique jewelry is doing incredibly well at the moment. For quite a while, it was sort of on a back burner. Antique jewelry, silverware, internally popular. And then you get a lot of people buying porcelain at the moment, and then your very, very high-end items, that were really old Chinese items. They're very, very popular currently, in the world of Chinese at the moment in the antique industry. World records are being set currently all the time, and recently a world record was set for one of Andy Warhol's paintings. I think it was last week. So, it's quite an interesting world, the collecting world, because you're going from somebody, a pop artist, Andy Warhol, who now holds the world record of a price received. And then you have people collecting there's been some incredible finds in the Chinese market.
It's a fantastic day out. It runs from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Nelson Mandela Square every first Sunday of the month. And I'm thrilled to have had Clyde Terry join me on the SANTON Times Hour. He's the organizer of the Nelson Mandela Square Antique Fair, and he's also the owner of Clyde on 4th Antiques. And that wraps up our SANTON Times Hour for this week on Mix 93.8 FM, and is always available as a podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify right after this particular show. You can email editor@santontimes.co.za. You can connect with us on at SANTON Times, whatever social media platform you prefer, and you can also visit the website www.santontimes.co.za. Feel free to send through your questions, queries, concerns, comments. As always, they're all welcome, and it's great to have you contributing to the content on the show and what we discuss and what we look at. Thank you to all my guests this week who've made the time to be on the show as well, and thank you to the SANTON Times team, as well as everyone at Mix 93.8 FM. Thank you for listening as always, and let's connect again next week.
That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to the SANTON Times Hour. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share it.